process building the habits of being an exceptional sponsor in this business. Does that make sense? Meaning in life, we're always going through 3 evolutions. This isn't my words. I actually been studying Dr. Covey a lot lately. And he says, we're brought into this world completely dependent. We're the only form of life, by the way, on this planet that comes into existence in a state of natural disorientation with our world. Meaning my 2-month-old granddaughter that's just downstairs right now, she's just starting to get control of her hands. And she's in a fight with herself because they're always either in the right place or the wrong place. She's starting to find her eyes and track motion. She's completely dependent on us for nourishment to even support her head. Now, her sister's almost 2. She's more independent. How many of you had somebody in your life turn 2, where suddenly they telling you no when they mean yes? You want some juice? No. Oh. Now I got to stick with my answer though. That transfer from dependence to independence is a critical step. And then from there to interdependence. Our goal for us in this business, if you're right now not independently funding your business, is to track back through the 7 habits. I'll give you a crash course so that you remember them. Track back through the 7 habits and see which habits you need to cultivate more to get that personal victory to go from dependence to independence in terms of making money. Now, for network marketers, especially those of us that want to master it, it's that gap between independence and interdependence where we can learn to make money on our own, but understand the power of making money together. Are you with me?
Yes.
Good. So as we jump in, I want you to think about a new person's success cycle. I want you to put yourself through the same success cycle in your first 30 days, just knowing that over the course of time, you're going to help millions of people get started in business. Is that okay? I want you to get that big a vision if we're going to make wealth real. And I want you to begin with that idea that that's what we're in business. Why are we in business together? Everybody say it. Why are we in business together? Uh-oh. Are y'all all
wait a minute. Okay.
Why?
In business to make money.
To help billions of people.
And to help a lot of people.
To make other
They
people
don't
make
know what
millions
we
of
know.
dollars.
Live a legacy and leave it.
We're getting close. We're getting close. I give you a hint. It's the name of the company.
Make wealth
Make
real.
wealth
Make
real.
wealth real.
We're in business together to make wealth real. Not ideal, not theoretical, not imaginary, not what if, not just a little bit of money. I want you to be wealthy. I want me to be wealthy. I want we to be wealthy. I want us to make wealth real together. And that's the power of this business if we do it the right way. And as we go through that process of doing it the right way, John Maxwell says a real leader is someone that knows the way, shows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. So as we start thinking about this is what I want you to do, is get new partners started the right way. First, by getting yourself started the right way. Meaning, as I think about this, we have 90 days. There's a concept that we learned back in olden times in our first company, ACN. Anybody remember that company? We started off in long distance and then moved into beepers and cellular phones and eventually into energy. Mm-hmm. But here was the goal, was to be the best us that we could be as business builders. And if you think about this, our goal for new people is to create momentum. If we close out this year, because we're right on that break point, where we create the momentum by mastering a process of getting new people started quickly. What's the challenge with new people? Put this in your notes. They're new. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, even if they've been in network marketing before, new people are new. They don't know what they're doing. And the things that they think they should do are usually the wrong things. We've got to be good enough as we bring a brand new life into this industry and into this business to help them get started the right way, and is understanding how to honor a process. Now, imagine this. I show this diagram every time. I know what words I'm going to say. I know what things I'm going to do to pique someone's interest, what keys and words I should use and what words I should not use, invite them to see something, pass them to a tool, and then from that tool, pass them to someone else to help in the closing relating process, and then promoting them going through this process. I've run the diamond a bunch of times. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Could you imagine running the baseball diamond with a baby that you can't hold their head up? Because that was one of my inner convictions. Unfortunately, we've gotten in the habit of having people get started in the business, sending them off to watch a training video or go to someone else's training, and not helping that baby learn to hold up their head to get from dependent to independent. So as you think about the 7 habits, here's what you gotta understand. Oh, by the way, I make the assumption that everybody knows 7 habits of highly effective people. Our goal isn't to help people get started in business. We want to launch a business. It takes a tremendous amount of fuel to get a rocket ship into orbit. And it also takes, over time, developing new habits that a person just quite honestly didn't have. So cheat sheet for the 7 habits. This is actually the document. If you were in my office, this is what sits over my desk when I sit down at my desk. And that first step, first tier, dependence. There are 3 habits that you got to master to control that private victory to go to independence. They are: habit 1, be proactive. Number 2, begin with the end in mind. And habit 3, put first things first. It's all about prioritization, where you put your time, your money, and your energy. When you master these 3 things, these 3 habits, you graduate to that level of independence where now you can sustain a business on your own. They can drop you off in any city in America. You can get it popping. Does that make sense? But to get that public victory, now you got to start thinking about win-win. It's not just about what I want. It's not just about what you want. It's about what we want together, how we can get together. And the way that the win-win happens is if you seek first to understand and then to be understood.
Amen.
Meaning, until a person knows that you hear them, they can't hear you. And it begins with you, but that understanding gives us the power to synergize where 1 + 1 is more than 6. And the overarching habit, the thing that makes all of it get better, is sharpening the saw. Physical, mental, spiritual renewal every day. Build a habit of getting better at each of these habits as you climb the ladder. Does anybody have any questions about 7 habits? Now, here's how this applies. You're like, 7 habits, that's good. That's a great book. How does that apply to network marketers and sponsors? Well, it's just like this. You got to think about it. If you think about the habits of highly effective sponsors, they're everything we talked about. But the ineffective sponsors are the exact opposite, meaning instead of being proactive, meaning we're knowing that something's going to happen in somebody's business, they act ahead of time to map out the process and overcome the objective with them, right? Instead of beginning with the end in mind, they don't even have a long-term vision. They're just trying to see how to get their money back. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Instead of putting first things first, they put the cart right before the horse. And instead of thinking win-win, they're always looking for that win-lose or one-sided. If I get my 3, I'll get the momentum bonus. Versus how can we all win where by you getting your 3 and me helping somebody else get their 3, I get the performance bonus. You get the momentum bonus and a story you can tell for the rest of your career. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Instead of synergizing, they just compromise. Rather than you move 2 steps toward me, I move 1 step towards you. We'll just split the difference. I'll put a date on the schedule. I won't help you invite, but I'll see who shows up when we get there. And then last but not least, instead of sharpening the saw, they are building a larger body-shaped dent on their sofa, not renewing their mind, their body, or their energy. Okay. Sometimes I've had some ineffective habits. Anybody else? I know what the Richard shaped dent on my couch looks like.
Yes.
So as we think about when a new person gets started, I want you to think with your mind and theirs, knowing what your experience was and what you want for them. Does that make sense? So when it comes to mastery, when it comes to sponsoring at a high level, it's always the 6 honest serving men. I had 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names were who and what and when and where and why and who. Now, in this world, we got to think about the questions that a new person really has that they might not even ask you. Meaning, think about this. When a new person gets started, they just barely broke over the threshold of people that don't get started. Yes or yes?
Yes. Yes.
Meaning somebody says, we at the end offer them a choice. We say you're a number 2 or a number 1. Now that's what's called a presumptive close in sales and persuasion culture. Yes.
Yes.
We're presuming that somebody's going to get started. But in real life, there are a whole bunch of people that are number 3 and just haven't said it yet. And even people that get started, put this in your notes. Even people that get started as a number 2 or number 1, some of them just get started because we said, are you a number 2 or a number 1? Not what's wrong with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if we think about the reasons why people don't get started, money, time, and belief, we know that we have to build up this belief in their mind, because the first time, everybody put it in your notes, the first time they hear someone say, I don't have the money, or I don't have the time, or this ain't gonna work, that also blows that wobbly head new baby out of the water. Because they were already thinking, I didn't have time or money for this either. And you have to help them with the objections. And then if you think about as we go through, why people quit or fail, if our end in mind is knowing this. Oh, okay, let me say this. 2 categories of people in this industry. In this industry, it's not even this business, it's not specific to MWR. You got quitters and winners. Right? You got to choose to win and don't quit. And quitting doesn't mean you stop making your payment and stop showing up to meetings. Is that you stop doing the things that make you money.
Right.
Am I making sense? What makes us money in this?
New QMDs,
Talking.
Write it
building
down.
structure, building teams.
Exposures is invitations and exposures. This is it's show business. We show people the business. And when we show people the business, people that want to get into business, get into business. But if we stop showing new people the business, we stop making money that day.
Right.
We don't have a plan for how we're going to show people the business today and tomorrow. We're not actually planning to make money today or tomorrow. Does that sounds harsh, doesn't it? But ain't it true?
It's true.
So as we think about this, think about the things that we need to do better to make sure that we got number one reason why people quit is unrealistic expectations. You know that the fact is that everybody has 3 people in their mind that are going to get started because they got started. Yes.
Right.
Is everybody had at least one of those people turn out not to be one of the 3? Like Jesus had 12 people that were following him.
One fell out.
But he had several that fell out in different ways, right?
Oh,
They even got books about how they fell out, right? So if Jesus was going to have people with unrealistic expectations, and they watch him raise the dead, water in the wine, fish in the low, he was working literal miracles. Somebody's going to come here and say, well, if Brian Bean hit, $1,500 a day in 2 years, I could do it in 2 months, right? But it's also time management, overwhelm, and confusion. And these 2 right here, fears of rejection and failure. How many of you have experienced these and found ways to overcome them? And how many of you are honest with yourself, still have some level of these fears creeping around as gremlins driving your bus right now? And then it's the overall level of belief in the industry, in the company, in themselves, and in their sponsor. These 10 things are already in their head before you give them the roadmap. I want you to understand that, right? So giving them the roadmap and saying, check the box isn't everything that we have to do. Because the next thing is most people get in here and say, well, that's just not me. Anybody heard that?
Yep.
If who you were could make you wealthy already,
You'd be wealthy.
you'd be wealthy already. And then these next 2, goal setting and training procrastination, and then lack of upline support. Do you know that we can knock out all 10 of these if we are diligent about coaching them through the roadmap versus just giving them the roadmap? Does anybody know there's a difference?
Yeah.
They got 30 days to do a lot. We want to get the most out of them in their 30 days because everybody has what Brian Bean calls a quitting clock. Chuck, you share the concept of the quitting clock while I bring up this next slide?
Yep, yep. So as soon as somebody gets started, it's a little clock in the middle of their chest, right? And you got either 2 to 4 hours, 2 to 4 days, 2 to 4 weeks, 2 to 4 months, then you got 2 to 4 years. So within those first 2 to 4 hours, they got to do something from what they invested in. Something got to happen positive towards their business. Something can be as simple as setting their first 2 LLC meetings. That's something simple. Something as simple as ordering their MWR card. That's something they've done. We got to get them some type of movement, right? Then we got 2 to 4 days. 2 to 4 days, they don't have to have the momentum bonus in the first 2 to 4 days, but they have to have some type of progress. So we have to continue to give them little things to stretch out their time frame of their quitting clock, because that quitting clock resets every time they do something giving them positive momentum. So we got 2 to 4 hours, 2 to 4 days. To get those 2 to 4 days, got those things set. When I uploaded your information into the system, let's wait for the experts to see what happened. Rewind. Now we got about 2 to 4 weeks. We got 2 to 4 weeks, and we got to get some momentum going, give them a business partner, at least have one of their first meetings, right? Click it out. Now we got 2 to 4 months. Now, once people get to 2 to 4 months, we got a good time frame to help them create success. But who on the line has somebody had a team member quit within 2 to 4 months because they didn't see any progression in their business? It doesn't necessarily have to be recruiting. They have to see progression. So either financially, they've seen something where they personal finances, they have results from the membership. They might have 1 or 2 business partners, so they got a check, which is the best thing to do. Or they might have just grown mentally, like, wow, I'm learning so much just from being around these experts and being around us, that they're sticking around. Because the 2 to 4 years is where you can go ahead and create that real serious success. Because again, this is a business. Thank you very much. Back to you, Richard.
So how do we control that narrative? How do we make their first 24 hours more successful? Because here's an honest to God mistake I've made. Has anybody ever signed somebody up, sent them a welcome text, and counted on the welcome text to do the work of getting them started in business?
I have.
Now, here's the reality. They got in business with you to do business with you. Put a meeting on their schedule. If you know you got a 2 to 4 hour quitting clock, meaning 24 hours really, here's what's going to happen in 24 hours if you don't proactively, I want you to be proactive about this, proactively set the agenda, they're going to be toast. What do I mean toast? They're going to get their feelings hurt trying to go out and explain everything that they saw one time before they signed up. Does that make sense? How do we avoid it? We get on their calendar. We always talk about book a meeting from a meeting. It's not just that we book their launch. Let's book some time to teach them how to invite and to invite together. Because here's what's important. You want to make sure that person knows what it means to be qualified so they stay qualified. You want to know what to show them specifically where to go to make sure that they build that story for increasing their cash flow. But you know the most important thing about this process? You get to build a personal relationship with them so they learn to trust you, and people will continue to do business with people they know, like, and trust. Yes?
Yes.
You get to actually set goals that you agree to. Because how many, okay, I'm not going to confess your sins. I'm going to just confess mine. How many of you gotten somebody started and you didn't even know what their 30th day was? You didn't set the goal with them, even though I want them to be executive director in a week. We didn't set a goal that put enough things in place for them to realistically do that unless they could do it on their own. These are the things that we have to, as we become more effective sponsors, we're not just signing them up and getting them in. We got to get them started. That makes sense? And then spend the time with them while they're strategizing so that they have a clear, simple plan of action. Because you know what a confused mind does? Not a day, nothing. I'm sorry. Oops. Almost. Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
And then let them see you in the process of generating a list. Because I think too many of us get comfortable with the idea of telling them where to get the list from that they've never seen us make a list. We get so comfortable with adding new people to the list every day that I'm just calling the people that I labeled new in my phone because I put them there. And then the last thing is getting questions answered directly, even if they're not answered by you, right? So who should do it? You. On this call, I deem thee leader. I say, I'm not worthy. I hereby dub thee worthy to be a leader so that you can be responsible and know that if it's up to be, it's up to me. Like, when is Mr. Bean training? I don't know. When is Dr. Hill training? I don't know. But when did your partner get started? Yesterday. When do they need the quick start? Today. And book out enough time. I'm not saying you got to spend all day, but grab an hour or two so that you create a memory of something that other people can do. Because people do what? They do what you do.
What you do, not what you say.
They do what you do, not what you say.
Do what you do.
And the more urgent you make it, to help them get started quickly, 24 hours no longer than 48 hours, because within 24 to 48 hours, they've either developed the habit of thinking about the business every day or developed the habit of not doing anything. It doesn't take 21 days to form a habit of not doing the business if you hadn't done the business 30 days before. It only takes about an hour or two to get past the initial excitement to go back to who you were being. Now, is this helping anybody? Like, if you really think about the last couple of people that you signed up, especially the ones that got started with a coupon, how many of us took the time to establish that we had value for them and they had value to receive in getting started fast? This business is really success, love, speed, but a new baby can't run fast. Now, 2-year-old, oh, they blazing. I really did not know you could be that fast at 2 years old. Now, where should it happen? Preferably if they're driving distance, if they're local at their house or a coffee shop close by, you do want to have an appointment that takes them out of their normal. Does that make sense? Because we have the ability to sponsor people out of town, a private Zoom where it's just you and them, right? Or you and them and one other person if you think you need backup, but it's not that you're doing quick starts for everybody at once. Does that make sense? Sacrifice that hour, because in that hour, you want them to have the roadmap in hand on paper. I know we say print it out, but if you do it there with them, you know you get a chance to write on it together. You get a chance to take a picture of where they want to be in a week and where they want to be eventually, so that as you go through that interview, that time where you paint the vision of, oh, well, if we double what it costs you to live and you paid all your bills, but you still got your whole check left, what would you do with the rest of that? Make sure that they're wide, that they've written it down, but also so that you know what it is too. Because if you're like me, if you got a heart for helping people, knowing why they're in the fight will make you fight harder for them. Right? And then just spend the time with them. Once you get done with the basics of getting everything set up, spend the time to make sure they got at least that list of first 25 so that first LLC, PBR LLC can happen. Now, here's the things that you do. Make sure that you get all these in the time that you're there. Number one, congratulations, right? Because truth be known, how many of you know that some of us started a business and we went home excited about how we're going to change our family's lives, and the other person there at the house was not excited that you were gone and not excited that you started another business? The hell? It's going to help us all. It's going to be a blessing, but up front, you might be the only congratulator in their success circle, but also collect the information that they need to get their goals in order and that you need to understand them. clarify what their goals are, make sure that they're connected to the systems. Meaning right now, I know we got to clean up our calendaring process so that we know how we can collaborate and build business together on a daily basis. I know we got stuff coming in Messenger and in Telegram, and sometimes I myself get lost. Does anybody else get lost with all the announcements of when something's happening, button heads with other events, all of that? We got to clean up our calendar so that we know when we can do business together and then customize the business to suit them. Meaning, what do I mean by customizing? Some people work night shift. Some people aren't available at 7. Let's build a calendar that's me and you together where we'll figure out where we can plug in with the rest of the team. But I want to catch you when you got your best energy, highest availability, and we can be on camera together. Does that make sense? If we do that, if in that session we go through that process, and now we're in a place where we got a partner that's getting started. Okay, you've seen me ask these questions. How much money we need to make a difference in your life? How many hours per week? How long will you be willing to focus? Is there anything else on your plate that can generate that extra $10,000 a month? How do you want me to handle the tough times that'll come to you? Always. Just know those things and then customize. Now, when it comes to customizing, I know what y'all, somebody's told y'all, don't make a list. I don't know any business that does not have an active candidate list. And I'm not talking about just network marketing. I'm talking about Microsoft has an active candidate list. The moment somebody turns 18 years old, do you know that Microsoft is targeting ways to separate them from the family subscription to get them their own Microsoft Office, Bing, and other subscriptions? They've known them their whole lives. They were waiting for them to be grown. Does that make sense? Every marketing company has a profile of the people that they're looking for and keeps records of the contacts that they've made with those people. This is a contact sport. You got to have your contact list. It's got to be written down. Now, it might not be handwritten. Once you got a couple of thousand, you might need to do what we did and use this spreadsheet so that you can sort, so that you, when you find out that Sean Hill's going to Charlotte, North Carolina, you can sort for who do I know in Charlotte? Or I'm going to Jacksonville. Who do I know in Jacksonville? But this is what you need. You need a copy of their list so that you have it and that they have it, so that when they tell you they talk to everybody, you're like, there ain't no way in hell I met Clara Blareswell. I don't even know who that is. Who is Clara Blareswell? Oh, she's down here. It's number 10. But they talked to this first 3 and they were done. Does that make sense? Those were the super delegates for the universe. And just review it daily and teach them the habit of adding to it and then customizing the schedule. Meaning, I get it, y'all. It's a part-time business. And in life, they talk about the big rocks in your life. And for most people, our main source of income is the biggest rock. Yes. You know what the second biggest rock is in my life right now? Other people's emergencies. And BS. Y'all know what that is? Yeah, you do. Yeah, it's that belief system that says, I done been over here dealing with these other people's emergencies. I need to relax and decompress. I'll watch House of Dragons. Oh, is that just me? But now that we're carving up time to do business differently, we got to look at the habits and say, what things do I have in my urgent and unimportant vector and in my not urgent and not important that are taking up the time where I can strategically plan how I'm going to take over the world. We got to develop that habit in us. That's putting first things first, by the way. That's that habit. We got to develop the habit of putting those things first so that we have time to build business and making sure, this is a secret I found for myself. All the stuff that's on my calendar with an alarm happens. Make 15 calls too often didn't have a time that it happened. And I suddenly got a pincher in my life. For those of you that don't know, my grandchildren live with us right now. It's weird because it's a long time since I had babies, but that means I got very tight windows to get everything done. So when nap time comes, that's also the alarm for I can make all these calls right now while they're asleep because they're going to be up. And everything that they need is urgent and important. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that means that's not my time to go catch up on Navy SEALs. That help?
Yes,
Put in
yes.
first, put in theory your ideal work week. So like start with when you got to be at work and when you got to be gone. Make sure those are blocked out and that you work when you're working so that when you get off, you can go to work for you. Does that make sense? Put some time at the
Yes.
top of that day. However early you get up, make sure the first thing you do is that sharpening the saw habit, meaning do something to renew your mind and your body so you hit the world at a higher vibration and frequency. Like I'm a fan of the miracle morning. Get up every day, savers, silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. It's just writing down on paper what we about to get, what we about to do today. Does that make sense? That's being proactive so that I'm not waiting to react to what appointments, what emergencies happen in the day. I'm already booked up with things that are urgent or not urgent, but important to my success. First things first. Yes. Everybody got, does everybody have a calendar? Now here's a secret.
No, I don't.
Once you have a calendar, make sure you show your new person and take some time to match up when we can do business together. Because now, I want you to know it's not you in this by yourself. It's not that I'm telling you to go out here bear hunting with a switch. I got to make calls too. Let's make them together. Let's stop having the habit of having new people invite by themselves. Like it's really one of those things that the chances that they do it well, unless they're a promoter, right? A promoter, a marketer, they've already got previous experience. They're not going to do it well, and they're not going to do enough. But if you get together, even if we're on Zoom doing a power hour, y'all remember we used to do Zoom power hours in the pandemic?
Yeah.
I get way more calls done in that 1 hour that we were doing calls at the same time than I would trying to sit down at my desk once we were done with the call, calling one person. It's having an appointment at a time to do a thing. Like Dr. Hill talks about the 7-hour work week and having 2 power hours, but it's also the accountability. And especially when you're new or developing new people with new muscle, making sure they have it. Now I'm going to go through one more thing and then I'm done for today. We'll talk about the other habits next week. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. So now that you got it customized, now that you've tailored this to say in an ideal week, here's when I can take time to do business and build out business. Like here's work, here's where my power is, here's where the calls, and I do more calls on the way to briefing and training, knowing I got other events going on through the week, and then setting aside personal time. And these yellow areas, it's all this other time still left to do other stuff. Does that make sense? This is literally 7 hours is what I put into this particular calendar. It's old school right there because it say PBR, not LLC. Y'all see it? And just in the renewing your mind, here's my go-to list. I'm running through these 3 all the time right now to remind myself of who I was. Because how many of you have had some things happen to you where it's like, wait a minute, who am I? So between GoPro and The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, has everybody read those books?
GoPro.
They're on Audible. It's just good mindset foundation, and it can whisper in your ear repeatedly. Like the good thing about reading a book is you can read it. But the great thing about an audio book is you can read it, you can listen to it. Like my bedtime story right now, but y'all, the greatest salesman in the world.
What did you say that second book was, please?
Oh, which second book? Oh, up here?
Not GoPro, the other one.
GoPro, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And he has several different versions. He has one for teachers and for network marketers. But the original book, The Miracle Morning, just sets you up to grow yourself first. Jim Rohn, Building Your Network Marketing Business. I have it on my iPhone. Just it's from back in the iPod days. Brilliant Conversation. Tim Sales. Anybody remember that?
Definitely. I got them. I just on my closet.
It's such a powerful way to remind ourselves of the power of what we do and why we do it. And then some money books. This mindset combination right here, back and forth between the Total Money Makeover with Dave Ramsey, which is a fast read, and Money Master the Game, which covers all of the concepts. Like I actually learned about infinite banking from this book before I knew where to get a PRA.
Hmm.
He covers it in detail and the concept and why people use that as a place to park their money. And we just got to get better at having these conversations in our ears, because what comes into our ears in the absence?
Everything but
Noise.
Shit, we was watching The Masked Singer. Oh, that, bleep that out. Bro, it's like semi-famous singers dancing in a costume, but riveted. But how much money will knowing who is that under that mask really make me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So for now, these are the habits we want to cultivate right now this week. I want you to do these things for yourself first, and watch how quickly they help you attract your next recruit. Meaning all the things that you're going to set up for that new person to do, well, it's got to start with you. So you got to start connecting. And if you have not done one since before Jacksonville, that's what I'll call the start date of this momentum phase. When is your next personal Zoom? And when is your next event where you're in the room with someone? Does that make sense? When is your next PBR or legacy and lifestyle conversation called LLC? And then make sure that these things are on your list. Like what I noticed about MWR Financial and Extra Digit Movement, because I follow them, do you know, even when I miss something, I wake up the next morning and it tells me that MWR Financial was live.
Mm-hmm.
And that habit of plugging in, that's how we stay lit, which is Chuck's acronym. So Chuck, you want to close it with the acronym? We'll talk about day 2. You know, all that was day 1, right? Talk about day 2. Next time. Now, the good thing about setting up day 1 well is it sets the foundation for building the new habits over time with you and them. So Chuck, tell them what the LIT acronym is, and we're going to close out today because I see we are at 8:30. I did not mean to go that long. I just got into the conversation I'm having inside myself. Was hearing me talk to myself helpful to you to talk to yourself about what you need to do next?
Very much so.
It's good.
Yes,
Very much.
absolutely.
And it's 8:36. It's not
8:36.
8:36. Because we got to get lit, you guys. Lit is really, it's to learn, to implement, and then teach. So we just learned it. Let's implement what we have, because that's the thing I always say. I always say, but you can get overwhelmed by getting all that at one time. We got a few things in place. We got the calendar we got to set up. You know what I'm saying? We got the positive mindset beginning of the day. You know, pick out what you want to listen to. Pick out what you want to focus on. The great thing about listening to it, you can listen to the same thing all week. That way you be sure you get it. You know, you listen to the same thing all week, right? Be sure you program it in and then get that schedule laid out. You got to have a plan and then work your plan. I call it the accomplishment list. Check that thing off. Check it off. Check it off. All right, everybody good?
All hearts and minds clear. Let me pause for questions. I'll have the questions off the recording.